The Hills of Boisdale. The Johnston Exodus. The Hills of Boisdale remember, and if you want more hidden history brought to life, don't forget to like and subscribe as we journey into a saga of exile, survival, and memory that crossed an ocean. In the Scottish Highlands, the Johnstons lived on crofts scattered across moor and glen. They were keepers of Gaelic song and story, farmers of sheep and small plots, people tied to land their ancestors had worked for centuries. But the 18th and early 19th centuries brought sweeping change. Landlords, drawn by rising profits in wool and new estate models, began reorganizing entire communities. The process remembered bitterly as the Highland Clearances turned tenancy into eviction. Soldiers enforced orders. Roofs were torn off cottages, rents climbed beyond reach. For the Johnstons, as for thousands of others, the choice was stark: leave or perish. Some were forced out by fire and law, others worn down by impossible leases. Ships leaving western Scotland carried them away from the glens they knew, across the Atlantic, toward Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia, a place spoken of in letters as both refuge and wilderness. Cape Breton greeted them with a haunting familiarity. The hills of Boisdale, rolling and boggy, felt like echoes of home, yet this was no restoration. It was exile under another sky. The Johnstons felled trees for cabins, dug furrows into rocky soil, and tried to coax life from unfamiliar land. Their first winters were brutal. Timber cracked in the frost, food ran thin, and the ocean that brought them refuge also cut them off from what they had lost. Still, resilience took root. Gaelic remained their hearth language, sung in hymns at chapels and murmured in kitchens. Parish records in Cape Breton trace births, marriages, and deaths of Johnstons and their kin. Some names appear on land grant petitions, others in court disputes over boundaries, others only as faint entries in ship manifests. Every scrap of paper is a reminder of lives lived in uncertainty, yet bound together in community. Generations layered hardship with adaptation. They turned to potatoes, oats, and small livestock. They fished the coast when harvest failed. Stone walls crossed boggy fields where hedges once grew in Scotland. Wakes and selas carried songs that still remembered glens left behind, even as new verses were born in Cape Breton. In some records, the Johnston name shifts spelling, sometimes with a T, sometimes without, reflecting clerks' interpretations and the family's quiet compromises with colonial bureaucracy. But documents alone do not carry the whole story. Oral tradition recalls sharper details: a Johnston widow trading her silver thimble for seed potatoes, a father walking days to petition for land rights, returning only with broken promises, disputes between brothers that left scars in stone boundaries still visible in Boisdale's hills. These fragments breathed life into what would otherwise be silent lines and ledgers. The clearances had scattered them, but Cape Breton gathered them again into a kind of fragile continuity. Chapels rose, schools opened, and in Gaelic sermons, the old stories were reshaped into lessons for survival in a new world. Community leaders emerged: farmers, fishermen, even a few shopkeepers who helped anchor the settlement. Some prospered, others dispersed to Sydney's coal mines or farther afield. Yet the memory of forced exile bound them together across distance. Historians and genealogists like A.J. Macmillan later pieced together the evidence in works such as To the Hill of Boisdale, showing how families like the Johnstons made Cape Breton both a home and a living archive of Highland culture. Parish minutes, land petitions, and oral histories confirm patterns. Evictions turned to voyages, voyages to settlements, settlements to enduring cultural legacies. But the price of survival was steep. Cape Breton's winters were unforgiving. Isolation meant long months without outside aid. Disputes over timber rights or foreshore fishing grounds tested unity. And always in the background, there was the knowledge that they were there not by choice, but because they had been driven from ancestral soil. Even today, the hills of Boisdale whisper their legacy. Ruined crofts sink into the heather. Gaelic place names cling to the landscape, and gravestones mark generations who refuse to let memory die. To walk there is to step through layers of Scotland and Nova Scotia at once, a landscape shaped as much by exile as by endurance. The Johnstons' journey is more than a family chronicle. It is a mirror of the Highland diaspora, a story of people forced to reroute themselves, carrying language, music, and grief across the Atlantic. It is also a warning of what is lost when communities are uprooted for profit and power. Yet in their songs, in their descendants, and in the land they claimed in Cape Breton, the Johnstons endure. Like and subscribe to keep history alive.